Hello, yes, and welcome to another episode of MLS Ireland. Well, I'll be bringing to you my predictions for week 22. A couple of good games on, and I hope you enjoyed. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for joining me this week. My name is Sean. If you're new to this, hit the wee subscribe button, and thank you very much for joining us. Just want to start off now. I'm hitting like the 70s in the subscribes, so that's pretty impressive for somebody who hasn't got a clue what they're talking about. So thank you very much for joining us. So what I do here is just a wee prediction show. If you're just new to this, I just try to come up with a few ideas of what the game could go along like, what the results should be probably around near the end. And I've started to throw in a few wee stats. If you've seen last week's show, that took forever to do. Editing is hard. Well, it's not hard, tedious, but hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, hit the wee like button, subscribe button. Be all meaning a lot to me. So the first game is Atlanta against LA Galaxy. The two teams basically had a few players at the MLS All-Stars, so players going over to LA Galaxy, training for a day and then heading back again, going to Atlanta is probably going to take a lot out of them, especially Zlatan, but I think he is suspended, but then Jonathan Dos Santos isn't, and he should be playing. I would assume Zlatan knew what he was doing, got suspended, and so he basically didn't have to travel to Orlando, back to LA, train for a day, and then back over to the East Coast. So that was an interesting development. He's smarter than he looks. So I went for it's going to be a tight game. LA Galaxy lost their last two games. Atlanta are easy to say, just slowly moving along, slowly moving up the ladder. I think they've only lost one or two games at home, and they've won the last two games, so they're doing pretty well. It's an interesting one. Like they always do score. Atlanta always score at home, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Atlanta. I think LA Galaxy missing Zlatan on that pitch is probably going to be a bit too much for them, so a 1-0 win to Atlanta, and that's going to be on TV here too tonight, so I shall be watching that. The next game is New York Red Bulls against Toronto. New York Red Bulls lost lost last week, very surprisingly, because I predicted them to win. They got beat by Columbus, I think, or was it Houston? They got beat badly. It's not like them really to be losing quite convincingly. Again, they're one of those teams that are surprising me at the moment. I would have expected them to do a hell of a lot more. No, they're going to beat by Houston 4-0. I would have expected them to do a lot more. I think Adams basically leaving's kind of messed up their midfield, and Bradley Wright Phillips being injured since the start of the season, I don't really think they've done all that well. Toronto the same. I thought Toronto may have kicked on now with Alejandro coming into the team, would have done a wee bit more and pressed a wee bit more and scored a hell of a lot more than they did at the start of the season. They started the season brilliantly, but they've kind of hit that wee slump now that they're not doing all that great. They won their last game against Cincinnati, so they're doing very well. It's just not well enough, unfortunately. The Red Bull got beat by, they did get by Columbus. I'm trying to think in my head here while I was looking at the screen. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to New York Red Bull. Just for the fact that I think they always score at home. Well, they always score at least one goal at home. They've scored at least more than 2 goals away from home in the last 5 games. At home, sorry, in the 5 games. In Toronto, just haven't been that brilliant away from home. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. The next one is New England Revolution against LAFC. LAFC, this is going to be a tricky one for them. Carlos Vela, basically in Orlando, back to training with his team, back over to New England to play against a team who are actually doing pretty well at the moment. It's going to be an interesting one. New England haven't really been beaten in quite a while. Well, they have been beaten, but in the last 3 games they've been winning them, and then a couple of draws too. So again, it's going to be an interesting one, but I think LAFC may have a wee bit too much for them. Have you noticed New England, since they've laid down that pitch for that pre-season game against Chelsea, that they've actually started playing well rather than on turf? It's an interesting one. And so when the NFL season starts back up again for the Patriots, shall we see them not play very well? Keep an eye on that. Again, New England against LAFC. LAFC are on top for a reason. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to LAFC. Sorry, New England Revolution fans, you could probably win this game, but if Carlos Vela isn't tired and completely banjaxed after playing in Orlando, and then go back for a 1-day training, then back over again, it could be a different. Next game is Orlando against FC Dallas. Orlando is going to be one of those games. I think they would actually start play very well against a small youthful defense, and FC Dallas, Orlando have conceded at least quite a few times, but 82% of their home games have conceded at least 1 goal. But I think with FC Dallas, the way they play, I don't think they're really going to show much danger to Orlando. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Orlando. So keep an eye on that one. I may be wrong. The next one is Cincinnati against Vancouver. I'm not expecting too much in this game. Cincinnati, with their fans, you would expect them to kick on against the team who haven't been doing very well either. Vancouver, who are sitting 3rd bottom in the whole Supporter Shield thingy thing. Vancouver have kind of failed to score in a couple of games, so it was an interesting one. I'm not expecting much in this one, but I do think it's going to be at least 1-0. Let me know in the comments what you think these kind of scores will be. Brilliant. The next one is Colorado Rapids against Montreal. Colorado, who would have thought at the start of the season that they would be doing better than they did last year. They're there. They're not bottom, so can I get them propped up by Cincinnati. But they're taking on a Montreal team who haven't been all with it, even though last week they beat Philadelphia 4-0, which I don't think anybody would have guessed at all. But I think Colorado Rapids may just nick this one, so I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Colorado. They've always been scoring. They scored in the last of the 13 games, so I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. The next one is Houston Dynamo against Chicago Fire. Houston at home should be a no-brainer. They do very well when they're at home. They usually hit teams on the counter-attack, and with Chicago Fire's high line and aging defence is in basically Bastian Schweinsteiger, who's played the MLS All-Star game. I'm going to think they're going to go for, it's going to be an easy one for Houston. I think Houston should easily win this one, so I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. And if all goes to plan and Chicago Fire actually treat this game tactically, they could probably get a result out of this, but I don't see that happening. The next one is Real Salt Lake against New York City FC. Real Salt Lake, again, they're very good at home, but as against these kind of teams in the likes of New York City, you would expect them to, like last season, you would expect them to just win 1-0. But New York City have been up there. They're getting up there. They're slowly moving up there. But they have like a lot of games to catch up on. So this game is probably the first of 13, 14 now in the next 2 months. So they really need to start winning these games. And so I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to New York City. They do score New York City, so, and Real Salt Lake, I don't think they scored that many when they're at home. The next one is San Jose against Columbus Crew, I believe. I don't know why I believe everything's written there. It's gonna be an interesting game. I just dropped my phone. San Jose have been very good this season. They started off quite slowly, but they're getting into it. Against Columbus Crew, who have been dreadful this season, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Even though Columbus Crew, it is a strange one for Columbus Crew. They won the last 2 games against New York Red Bulls and Montreal. So, but those 2 games were freaks of nature. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to San Jose. Columbus will score, but I believe San Jose will have a wee bit too many for them, bit too much for them. The next one is Minnesota against Portland. Portland on their many away games against Minnesota, who have probably now second best shouty, rowdy fans. One stadium that does look pretty good, probably the second or first, maybe the first best. The best looking stadium now in MLS, probably after LAFC. So, and against Portland, who have another set of brilliant fans, so this is going to be an interesting game. I am going to go for a 2-1 win to Minnesota, just for the fact that they have very good fans, and I think they will score quite a few goals for them. Plus, they're undefeated in their last 6 games, and they've only conceded 9 goals at home. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. DC United against Philadelphia. Philadelphia kind of let me down last week, getting stuffed against Montreal for all of the teams. Against DC United, who haven't really hit the ground running this season. They're up there, but winning the playoff, possibly winning the Supporters Shield, hell no. So it's going to be a tricky one. It's going to be 2 tight teams against each other, 2 teams who are not far off from each other too, and it's kind of like a rivalry. Well, MLS are probably trying to put it as a rivalry. It's going to go for DC United. Have conceded a lot of goals this season, 31 at home, and no, they scored 31 and conceded 14 against Philadelphia, who have always conceded at least 1 goal in their games. So we'll go for a 1-1 draw. Yep, a nice wee born 1-1 draw. I'm not expecting too much in that game. I think it's going to be just a back and forward kind of, I wouldn't say technical, but I'm going to go for two teams that are probably going to be cancelled out by their defense. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And the last game is Seattle Sounders against Sporting Kansas City. Seattle, I do like Seattle. They're 3rd in the league against Kansas City, who are starting to get their players back, but I think it's a wee bit too late for them. They got beat, which I predicted correctly last week, against New York City FC. They were going to get beat 3-1, and I believe, and I think it's going to be 3-1 again to Seattle. Seattle just have a wee bit too much for them, and I just don't think this season for Sporting Kansas City it's going to be a write-off. They could still make it into the playoffs for the whole sake of, I think it's the top 7 they can get into it. So it's going to be an interesting run off to the games in the next 2 months. So hope to God you will join me for those ones, and I hope to see you on the next one.